What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District for another huge Dynasty-focused episode live via the Player Profiler channel with another very special guest. You know him from right here in the Player Profiler Network, sometimes squeezed between Matt and Theo. Also from the RotoWire, Mr. Alan Seslowsky for the first time right here in the GOAT District. And we're talking Dynasty strategies. We're talking old wide receivers, messed up backfields, and so much more. So buckle up for some high stakes, high octane, high win rate, fantasy football goatness. Let's get.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We're back in the district for another special Wednesday night on the Player Profiler Network, like we do every week at 9 p.m. Eastern. And this is kind of like a Dynasty encore, right? Because Theo had the Dynasty week going, and then he tried to end it with a show that our guest tonight, actually, with Theo and John Daigle, put out recently. Go check that out. So we're like the encore, right? The band goes off, the crowd is cheering. They want more Dynasty, and that's what we do in the district, baby. That's what we do tonight. We're bringing one more, but we're bringing one special one. Before we get to it, make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Look out on this channel, on the GOAT District channel. Of course, you can find us on YouTube as well. We just passed 800 subs, so we appreciate all the support you guys are giving. We want to pass that 1,000 mark, so help us out there. And last week, Dan, we had a huge Dynasty show. We had Shane Manila from Dynasty Trades in 5 talking, what was it? Dynasty. Dan, help me out. Dan.
Yeah, it was all about Dynasty value. I mean, you guys went all over the place. I was unfortunately unable to be on the show, but I listened to it the next day, and it was fantastic.
See, that was the test, Alan.
Yep.
See how I tested him there, testing to make sure that he listened to the episode that he missed. Dan was out there spending Father's Day with his girls. Lucky guy. And, belated Father's Day to all the boys out there. Guys, let's jump into it. First of all, Theo, you made me misspell his name, man. Come on. It's enough I'm French. I already have trouble, pronouncing names, saying names, remembering them because, I'm old AF. But it's Alan.
JD, you got his first name right, which is better than the average right now, so...
Right. Hey, what is it with Canadians in Dynasty, by the way, Dan? How come there's a lot of Canadians that I'm in leagues with a lot of Canadians? That's like the Americans that like hockey. I mean, Dynasty fantasy football is loved by the I don't get it. How does it even get to Canada?
Winter lasts 11 and a half months up there, Alan. What else are they going to do? I mean,
but still, there's Canadian football. I'm happy you're here.
I'll attest it to this, Alan. I'll attest it to this. EA Sports, NHL. You build dynasties, right? So you kind of get hooked on that. And when you're in Canada, fantasy hockey is not as big. And that's why I really got into fantasy football. I found my way online. I found guys like Dan, Theo, and, now hooking up with guys like you, because up here in Canada, back in the day, it was hockey, but you couldn't really play hardcore or high stakes dynasty or fantasy. So you kind of trickle into football and it becomes, your new favorite sport.
Yeah. You just said that you passed 800 subs. You're at 815 subs. I'm going over to the RotoWire account right now. I'm clicking subscribe. There we go.
Yes.
Now you're at 816, baby. Let's
appreciate
go.
That. We appreciate it. Guys, go follow Alan. Go sub to the channel. Dan and I are doing the Owner's Lounge. We're talking high stakes fantasy. We co-own some high stakes dynasty teams together. We've done well with them. We bring you through all kind of the behind the scenes of us talking through proposals. Dan, what do we do? Eight trade proposals on the last episode?
Yeah, I believe so, and we got a couple of those accepted. So looking forward to chopping it up again and going back and doing a little bit more trading. So, and I've got a startup going that fires off tomorrow morning, and I'm totally excited about. So
yeah, we'll be talking about. Is that the one we're talking about later on? Yeah. All right.
Yes, it is.
All right.
I could see you two sickos plotting and planning trade. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that trade. I mean, I would just feel like, wait a second, I'm cornered. They're coming at me. Every trick in the book, you slimy traders. I can feel it.
That's right. Now we prefer to go with the first law of trading, which is if you make the other team better as well, then you've probably found a good trade partner. So
yeah, do you guys do good cop, bad cop? Like one guy come in? Okay,
yes,
all right.
Definitely. There's no doubt about that.
For sure.
Especially with people we know.
That's the beauty of co-owning, right? You can do that when you got two owners, right? One guy's a good guy, one guy's a bad cop. All right, guys. Alan, you know how it is with the boss, man. We got to make sure we hit all our marks. We're gonna run into a word from our sponsors here, and we're gonna come back and talk about dynasty strategy with our boy Alan. We're gonna do some deep dives on some old receivers and some cloudy running back situations. Guys, let's get back to it right after this.
Hey, people always ask me, what's the World Series of Fantasy? What's the Super Bowl of Fantasy? And it's easy. It's the FFPC. Their signature Players Championship has a $6 million prize pool. And their best ball leagues start in February. And they're the answer to so many questions. Hey, what's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC right now. There's more orphans at the FFPC than anywhere else on the internet. That's why we partner with them. So if you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, you love Dynasty, you love best ball, you love seasonal leagues, all types of fantasy footballers need to go to the FFPC. And remember, use promo code UNDERWORLD. Promo code UNDERWORLD gets you $25 off your first team. Promo code UNDERWORLD, $25 off your first team, no matter what the format is, at the FFPC. Go get it.
All right, guys, let's get into this. We've got some topics we want to hit on. We got some topics that we haven't even thought of yet that we'll probably hit on as we go off the rails a bit. But we love talking Dynasty. We're going to dive into it. We've got some situations to talk about. Of course, the backfields, Alan, is always a cloudy one, especially when you've got, like in Seattle, a rookie coming in, Charbs, having some draft capital behind them, having some talent with them, really scaring the Walker owners out there. And then you've got a Jacksonville situation where Etienne, we're big fans of him. Theo's big on Etienne. Again, they bring in a guy named Tank. I mean, with a name like that, it's intimidating. People are nervous. How are you approaching these two backfields right now in Dynasty?
Yeah, just a quick rewind. A lot of props for running the board and producing the show. I know how that is, man. It's nerve-wracking. Dan, it's something you'll never know about. When you have to run a show like that, you just come in, free ride, seatbelt on. You know what I'm saying?
That's everyone... right. I'm the guy on the roller coaster whose hands up, man. I got,
So
somebody else is in charge of it, man.
Yeah,
I think Alan just became my favorite guest.
I get it. So, by the way, anyone who says they're not scared of hell, if you own Kenneth Walker, you should be, right? I mean, because we just don't know. It's not that this guy's going to, Zach Charbonnet is going to take half the workload. The problem is, for example, I had Kenneth Walker as my RB1 in Dynasty before the NFL draft, and he wasn't like a typical RB1, right, guys? He was just all right, he's young, he's good, I'll put him there. It's not like the typical Christian McCaffrey when he was 24 years old. He was just there, and then he drops. So now I'm taking the discount, but my expectations have been so managed with ETN guys, and I'll let you, you guys can comment on both if you want here, but with ETN, I feel like this is just what he needed, right? It was pretty obvious that he wasn't doing well getting the full workload. He wasn't even realizing his pass catching upside. He was getting hurt. This is probably going to be better for him. Travis Etienne strikes me as a guy who's going to thrive with a 65, 55% workload rather than like a 70% touch share.
Yep, totally. I think with Seattle, I'm kind of with you on Walker. I didn't have him quite that high, but where I did have him before the draft was sort of like it was like almost a placeholder. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was like, I don't really like putting him here, but I don't know who else I can put here. So you're just kind of like, well, I guess it's him for now, and you're just I was just itching to replace him, and so that's always a dangerous thing when you're itching to do something like that, because you've already decided what's going on. But Charbonnet was somebody that I had him as my running back 3 in the class, and I was depending on how the draft went, I could have put him up in front of Jahmyr Gibbs. Had they gone roughly at equivalent positions in the draft or something like that, I might have gone with Charbonnet over Gibbs. I mean, I know Gibbs is a talented pass catcher, but a lot of running back is also, being able to work between the tackles, and Charbonnet can do it all. He can catch passes and everything else too. So I think Charbonnet is definitely a big drain on Walker. Who knows how it'll work out in real life, but it's definitely, Walker is not sole in that backfield anymore, and he's going to have competition and possibly competition for the high value touches. So
JD, before you answer, though, but you know what, guys? In redraft and even in Dynasty, it's all priced in. You no longer have to pay RB1, RB2 for Walker. Right. Now it's like RB10. So if you're taking him, don't worry. It's all priced in already. You're not paying. You're not paying retail. You're paying wholesale. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to start with, Alan. I mean, he's in the 3rd round right now. I'm looking at FFPC Dinos. This is 1 QBs. So you got to think Superflex. Add another half a round to a round past that, maybe a bit further in some drafts. If you can get Walker at a discount because of this, to me, he's a buy, especially in Dynasty. I'm more bullish on him than Dan is. I know that. I think Theo and I are kind of on the same page. You look at Carson's gone, Penny's gone. There's no one in that backfield. They needed someone. At a certain point, you got to have players on your team. This team loves to run the ball, although they were 20th last year in rush percentage plays, which was interesting to me, because you got to think they bring in JSN. They got to throw a bit more, right? They got more targets now to throw the ball. Gino's coming into his 2nd year, more comfortable in that Seattle offense. So this is an interesting offense. I think if you can get a discount on Walker, the problem with Charbonnet is, especially in drafts right now, again, looking at FFPC Dinos, he's going around guys like Aaron Jones, which I rather have a guy like Aaron Jones, especially in a win now situation. James Cook, who's going later in that round. I love James Cook at his price. I'll talk about him later. Guys like Joe Mixon, these are guys that can win you leagues. I don't know that Zach Charbonnet has that same ceiling with Walker ahead of him.
Yeah, you know what this is, guys? This is Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt from their peaks. I mean, that's what this is now, right? Nick Chubb used to be like a 3rd rounder. Kareem Hunt was like a 6th, 7th rounder, an expensive handcuff. This is similar situation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And honestly, with a guy like Walker, I'm kind of drafting around him. Just because I was never as big a believer in his talent as some people were. Give me Christian Watson. Just going about the same spot in the draft.
Just hit one of Alan's boys right there.
Yeah,
get them both. Why do you have to choose?
It depends on but that's a place where I would either trade out of or take Watson or whatever. That's just my personal preference, but I find it easier to just take the wide receivers right around where Walker's going.
Yeah. I mean, and you guys talked about Travis Etienne also, right? I mean, we say, everyone, there's a lot of, if you're pro Tank Bigsby, and there's very good reason to be, right, guys? It hasn't affected Travis Etienne's ADP. He's still maybe it's affected, if you're taking wide receivers or TJ Hawkinson ahead of him, if you're in an actual draft, but he's still RB 7 to 11, depending on who's ranking him. It really hasn't changed. And I'm still drafting Travis Etienne. It's very odd it's not odd that these guys now all have high yield handcuffs that are going to basically be flex options. And I mean, that's just the new way of the world. I mean, is there any Bellcows left besides Bijan Robinson at this point, right? Saquon Barkley maybe, but other than that, this is the way. I mean, we've been playing Dynasty and fantasy football for decades at this point. It hasn't been 24 running backs off the board in the first 2 rounds in 15 years.
Let's face it, you're drafting these running backs for as many clean starts as you can get in your RB spots. You know what I mean? Like that's why you're building, whether you're building a best ball team and you're building it that way to fill in the spots, or whether it's your dynasty team, you've got a solid RB1. Now you want to fill in that RB2. So, you know, that's what you're trying to get these guys at. And like you said, Alan, a lot of these guys it's already priced in. The thing with Etienne that I wonder though, going, you know, on the more bullish side, is we saw Adams go to Vegas last year and just open up the offense for a guy like Jacobs. Does Etienne benefit? I'm not a Ridley guy, but you got to think that if Ridley comes in and does what a lot of people think he can do, him and Kirk, they open up the air game with, you know, Lawrence kind of progressing his game. I mean, that could open it up nicely for Etienne and with more opportunities in that offense.
This is good to hear, JD, because there was far too much Ridley slander on last week's show. So I was sitting in my car yelling at my radio, going, What are you talking about, man? I should be on there. I'll tell you, Ridley.
Put me in, coach.
The Ridley thing, the only scary thing about the Ridley is that when he was playing like those 5 or 6 games, he wasn't good, right? I mean, we could think back a little bit, like maybe he was having some mental health issues because he left and didn't come back and then have the year suspension. So there is a reason. I'm pro Ridley also because of what he did do, but there's anyone who's a skeptic, I see the case.
Guys, he could be Michael Thomas. He could be Michael Thomas easily.
Yep.
The bad Michael Thomas.
Bad Michael Thomas, exactly.
Yeah.
Bad.
There are 2 Michael Thomases, just so you remember. Yeah.
Yes, true. So let's go over to another, I mean, not necessarily cloudy situations, but I think at the tight end position, everything is cloudy after the top, you know, the top tier guys that we talk about often. Chig Okonkwo is a guy that we like a lot in the district. We've been talking about him for a long time. I know Theo's a big fan as well. Greg Dulcich is a guy that surpassed Alberto last year, but you've got a new coaching situation with Sean Payton coming to Denver. Where are you at, Alan, with these tight ends? Are these, I mean, I know they're kind of deeper tight ends with upside for a lot of dynasty guys, but are these guys that maybe you're selling on hype, maybe in Chig's situation? And then Dulcich, like how nervous are you that he can continue with the progression that he showed us last year?
You know what tight ends like in a startup draft, guys? It's like everyone prefers to do their clothes shopping in a different type of store. Like, so you might go to Bergdorf Goodman, or someone else might go to Marshall, someone else might go to Walmart, and that's how I feel like we take tight end, right? Some people like to shop at the expensive part of the draft with the Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, or Travis Kelce. Other people like to shop, you know, middle of the road stores, you know, where, you know, Darren Waller or Pat Fryermuth, and other people just, you know, like myself, we go to Walmart, right? We just go to straight discount stores. And Chig Okonkwo is up to tight end 12, so there's no more discount, right? Remember the good old days when, like a month ago, when he was like tight end 16? He is, you know, it's you're going to see every fantasy analyst, and myself included, say that he's your sleeper, but by default, he can't be a sleeper anymore. I mean, Chig Okonkwo, what more do you want from a tight end in his first year, right? Just he showed well, he flashed, and now he's the number 2 target on the team, most likely. So, yeah, I'm interested, just like everyone else is. And if I miss out on, you know, on the first 10 tight ends and I don't want to be left in the dust, I have confidence. With Dulcich, not as much. It's because, like, this isn't Sean Payton's guy. Who knows how this offense is going to be? There's more risk there than with Chig, for example. So I haven't found myself drafting Greg Dulcich. And if anyone wants to take him off any of my teams, I'm always open for business with something like that. But, yeah, I usually shop in the Chig Okonkwo tier or a little richer. And then sometimes I'm thinking as the season's going on, guys, I might have to start going to the expensive store.
Yeah, I'm a lot more comfortable, you know, shopping at Walmart or worse, Goodwill, digging through the dumpster behind Goodwill.
That's
you know,
bad.
Dan loves the dirty tight ends.
Yeah, the stuff at the bottom of the dumpster. It's all good. It's all good. Now, I think that if you like Chig, if you like Dulcich, and I can see good reasons to like both of them. Like those are guys that, you know, and they're going in a startup, in a super flex around, you know, in FFPC anyway, where, you know, it's tight end premium. They're going around like the 10th, 11th round, which is not, you know, a high price to pay. You know, so grabbing a guy with some intriguing upside like that definitely has some appeal to me. And then I'll grab another guy who's going to be, you know, that I just feel like is going to be real productive and real cheap. You know, I'd grab a Tyler Higbee, Mike Gesicki, somebody like that, where I can get, I know that I've got my guy that I can put in the lineup, and I can just kind of wait and see what happens with these other guys. But, you always want to try to at least take a chance at getting one of those guys who might turn into a Kittle or a Goddard or something like that.
Yeah, I think kind of like I talked about with the running back position, it all depends how you build this tight end, your tight end room, I guess, in Dynasty, right? So if you're depending on Chig to be your week-to-week starter, you're probably in trouble, especially if it's Dulcich. Like for me, Dulcich, I'm just avoiding completely.
Good.
I don't trust that situation. I was an Alberto guy, maybe that's why. But I just feel like with Peyton coming in, all the offensive pieces they have there, we have no idea how this is going to play out. So I rather just, like you talked about, Dan, the opportunity cost. And I love guys like Joe Carlton brings up my favorite late round guy, Jelani Woods. I talk about often on the show. Athletic freak. He's got a new quarterback coming in. Rookie quarterbacks like to lean on the short game on the tight ends, especially if they have a guy like Jelani. Jelani looked good last year, man, as a rookie. So you got to think he's going to be a part of that offense. For the price, like you said, Dan, it depends on where these guys are in your build, but there's so many guys in the late rounds at the tight end position. Like I said earlier, after that first tier, it's pretty flat for me. Pick your favorite guys and pick how much you want to spend, whether you want to go to, we have Winners up here. That's where I go. They have all the cheap, they're nice name brands at cheaper prices up here in north of the border. So maybe for you guys, it's Walmart, but for me, if I can get one of the top guys, Dan, we talk about Kittle as one of our favorite guys this year. He's one of my most owned guys in Dynasty. Give me a Kittle that I can just slot into my tight end position every week and just destroy any Kelsey team or any Mark Andrews teams if he has a good week.
Hey, guys, not for nothing with this, though, but the minute that Nathaniel Hackett was fired last year, Russell Wilson, those last couple weeks, QB2. Alberto, that 1 week, QB tight end 7. So Alberto not dead yet. I'm glad you said that.
Agreed. And that's the other thing. He could easily come in and be the tight end 1 in that offense. Dan, I don't know if he was just trying to, make friends with the guest or make up for calling you Alvin or whatever it was. But he brought up a guy that I believe you really like in Christian Watson in Green Bay. Where are you with the receiver? We know he's got a shorter sample size with last year. He's coming off of an MVP quarterback, right? Throwing him the ball. But tell Dynasty Land, should they be buying Christian Watson? Is he a guy that you're confident can get to the next tier as a receiver in the NFL? And
is this, if I do any pro Christian Watson talk, is this going to trigger Dan at all, or is this?
No.
Okay.
This will not trigger me.
By the way, here's a little bit.
Dive right in. Let's do this.
You guys know this, but here's a little bit how the sausage is made at Player Profiler. Those quotes that are taken from the podcast, they're given a little gasoline to be inflammatory on purpose. So yes, the spirit of the quote that you're referring to, where I said that Christian Watson belongs in the same tier as Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, that's not exactly what I said. I said, at this time next year, it is more than likely than not that Christian Watson is in that tier because he broke out just as much as Olave and Garrett Wilson did. Specifically, what I'm talking about is that when he became a full-time starter, Christian Watson, in Week 10, he was wide receiver 9 for those 2 months. That's, you could say small sample size, but football is a small sample size, right? Everything's a small sample size. And then the other common pushback is, well, it's no longer Aaron Rodgers, it's Jordan Love. Small sample size, game of 1, Week 12 versus Philly, Christian Watson, 4 catches, 100 yards, a touchdown. It's something. All I'm saying is that how do we play Dynasty Fantasy Football? All we try to do is figure out who 18 months from now is going to go up in value and who in 8 months from now is going to plummet. Christian Watson is one of those players who already broke out, who everyone liked, who's basically a fringe first rounder, or he's got the T. Higgins draft capital that could be vaulted into that tier. And you don't have to pay for it, right? So nobody would bet me $1,000 that Christian Watson won't produce for fantasy either one of those two players. I wouldn't make the bet either. I don't know, but the point is, I don't have to pay for the breakout like you do with Wilson and Olave. So Watson, you're making some dynasty decisions in startups. You're choosing him or Devontae Adams. It's crazy, right? But that's what dynasty is.
Right. And I'd like to respond to senior football. Christian Watson has 41 catches for 611 yards. Great stat. Fantastic. That's absolutely accurate. You know what? Also, watch the games. Watch the talent on the field. You watch Christian Watson play, and he has shown you talent. I mean, the guy is dripping with athleticism, and he showed that he can harness that athleticism and make it work. Is it his fault that he was injured the first half of the season, basically? I don't know. You can say, well, he should have done a better job preparing. It's certainly a little red flag there. But, I'm going to take guys who have talent and have shown that they can harness it. And those are the kind of bets that I want to be making. I don't want to be betting on, some guy who, I don't want to bet on somebody who's, I'm saying, well, I don't know who else is going to take the targets. To me, that's the worst way to play fantasy football is I don't know who else is going to take the targets. I want to play with guys who I think are going to go out and grab their targets. And that's a guy like Watson. So that's where I'm at. I'm right there with you, Alan.
Senor
Let's
Frog.
go.
Senor Frog coming, or Senor Frog. I'm thinking Senor Frog in Mexico. Senor Football coming back with a bit of an explanation. Shout out to the chat, man. You guys are awesome tonight as usual. We love you guys. Smash the like, smash the subscribe, guys. Make sure you're tuned into the Player Profiler. I mean, the goodness that comes out of this channel is just beyond, anything that you probably want out of a fantasy football channel to help you win. And as well, check out the GOAT DiSTRiCT as well. We've got some goatness over there. The thing with Watson is, again, opportunity costs. I love when I'm looking at where he's going in dynasty startups right now in that like 4th, 5th, 6th round. I love the running backs in that range. And I love getting my first running back in a dynasty startup, like, loading up top heavy at receiver in those first rounds, maybe getting myself a stud tight end if it's tight end preems, and then smashing one or two of the running backs in those rounds. So let's do a quick OTC because we haven't done one yet. I wanted to do a couple there, but I mean, the talk is too good. Christian Watson, Alan, or DJ Moore?
Christian Watson. It's for me, it's not close. I mean, it's like a clear decision if I'm on the clock.
Watson with a bullet for me too.
Dan, what about Watson or Addison?
I'm still going Watson. And that's not that I don't like Addison at all. I think Addison is great and very intriguing, but Addison hasn't played a down of pro football yet. We think we know things about Addison that we already know about Christian Watson. So I'll take Watson.
JD, let me ask you this: if you were doing a rookie draft right now, right, the normal super flex, whatever rookie draft, and Christian Watson was thrown into the player pool with all the other rookies, where are you taking him? Where's the breaking point for you?
For out of this year's crew?
Yeah, like you're in a rookie draft, but for some in this special league that I just created, Christian Watson's thrown back into the player pool.
Probably super flex or 1 QB.
Yeah, we know you're taking the 4 QBs, right? We know you're taking JSN.
Probably around, he's probably around the Gibbs JSN, like maybe in that range. Right.
Like if somebody took him after the 4 QBs, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's a horrible pick. You'd be like, okay.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's right up there. JSN, I get the reasons for taking him over Watson. I would have to think about it for a while. What about you, Alan? Would you Watson or JSN? Which
I'm just wondering for the people that are skeptics. I mean, JD did a good job outlining his resistance that he likes the other players and how he builds rosters. But I'm just wondering, like, for example, if Christian Watson was on the Chiefs, right? If there was no quarterback problem for him at all, no questions at all, would this be an issue for, like, what is the problem with Christian Watson? He broke out. He did it already. Top 10 wide receiver. Looked great. What, high draft capital, like, is it just a Jordan Love thing? I just don't understand. Well, oh, no, I'm about to have this damn quote again. Why isn't he in the same tier with Chris Olave? Oh, no, we're going to do this all over again. See, this is what happened. So, yeah, I'm very bullish on
you're consistent, Alan. So
stick to your guns, man. Stick to your guns, right?
Yeah, somebody told me the other day, they said, you're wrong 95% of the time. And I just said, I'm definitely your most valuable analyst then if I'm wrong 95% of the time. You know exactly what to do. You know,
I always kind of measure it based on like how much of this guy I want, how much ownership I want of him, and how many dynasty teams do I want him on, especially the higher stake buy-ins. I mean, he's not a guy I don't want any shares of. He's a guy that I have right now 1 or 2 shares of. I added him to a contender at the end of last year for like a first rounder, And I mean, you love adding a piece like that. Do I want him to be my wide receiver 1 going into a contending season? No. Wide receiver 2, probably feeling a lot more comfortable, but I way rather have him as my wide receiver 3 or further. When you're looking at depth, that's just me personally. You might be more comfortable and bullish with him as a wide receiver 2, and that's where I think the difference is.
Let the chat weigh in on this. Who would you rather have, Drake London or Christian Watson? That's a real fantasy choice that you have to make for Dynasty, right? Let's say that you could have one of those guys, chat. You could have Drake London for their career or Christian Watson. Put it in the chat. Let's see what happens when they weigh in.
All right, guys. We'll come back to that. Put your answers in the chat. If you're listening if you're listening to this in a podcast or on restreaming it on the Player Profiler Network, make sure you drop your answer in the comments. We've already got a London there. Joe Carlton, I know he's a fan of the Watson. He's got Watson.
Wait. We're seeing London? Forget the question. Strike that question if we're seeing London. Cut this out of the podcast.
I'll add this one little tidbit on Watson. I was as down on Watson last year coming into rookie drafts as it was possible to be.
Yeah,
I was I would rather have Romeo Doubs than Watson.
Witness.
And I have 180 degrees flipped. I watched Watson on the field. You know, I didn't know if he could translate what he was doing at a Division II school up to the pros nearly as quickly or as well as what he did. I mean, we see a lot of these athletes from these Division II schools. They just fail. You know, they get drafted because they're super athletes, but they just don't do well in the NFL. Watson definitely broke that barrier. And he did really well in the NFL. You know, so I'm going to be the first to say I was flat out wrong about Watson. You know, I'm not right about everything, but I want to make sure ultimately I don't sit there and hang on to my priors, you know, all the way down to the bottom of the ocean.
No, you got to be flexible, right? Then whether it's years or seasons or half seasons or months or weeks, you always have to be flexible, you know, in any aspect of fantasy. So it seems like the chat was pretty much on the Watson side on that one with London. I mean, he's definitely a red zone beast. The last thing I wanted to add, Alan, just again, playing devil's advocate, is just with Love coming in, you got to think that they're going to lean on Jones and Dillon, you know, and the running game. So you put that into the equation, they're going to want to have Love in a secure situation, right? They're going to have him whipping the ball around from week 1. So I just think that offense, for me, I'm more focused in on the running backs. I do love Love. I do love Love at his price, you know, in Superflex. He's I mean, Dan and I are pretty bullish on him. We own him on a team or two, or in some builds that we've made even recently for a redraft.
And by the way, it's not with the last thing. Everything you said, the pushback on Chris Watson, that's why he's priced where he is.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
If this doesn't hit, don't come back at me and I told you to draft him. Don't draft him. Be a nutless monkey your whole life. I don't care, chat, right? Or if anyone listening to this, you don't want to take upside swings. Don't. This is Will Fuller, right? This is a Will Fuller where you could put him in there. He get you 35 points, or he can have 3 weeks in a row with like 7 points, and then you're gonna hate yourself for drafting him. It's very possible. There's no sure thing, and I guess that's why Olave and Garrett Wilson, they probably have a way more solid floor. So maybe I should retract that statement. But no, I'm not going to.
No,
Yep.
Come on.
No, we're trying.
Can't do that.
We're good. Okay, we had Shane on last week, Trades in 5, and we got into discussion about dynasty startups and how, you know, it was cool at first, and you were the sneaky guy in the room trading up, you know, to grab, or sorry, to trading back. Apologies, trading back. Whereas now you get into a lot of these dynasty startups, and I know you do a lot of mocks, dynasty mocks. So there's not trading there, but
I do. I'm in 40 leagues. I did 10 startups this offseason. I'm in the startup streets, guys. I all these like little nuances and things like that. I laugh because I see them all the time. There's, you know, all these leagues are the same.
So tell us, is that still an optimal approach? The trading back, like how do you approach that now when you go in? If you go into a room and a lot of the owners are looking to trade back, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's become a meme, right? Like, a pick on the block, right? As soon as you get in there, it's like, okay, Patrick Mahomes 101. No, you're not trading the pick. We know you just want to, like, you know, say pick on the block. It never happens. So really what you could do is the trading back is after the 7 or 8 or 9 QBs are off the board, right? So if you're in the Justin Jefferson spot, that I think that's the the trade back for someone that maybe already, because then you could do it. Because now you're not like, the whole reason trading back doesn't, quote, work anymore is because people realize what the value of the super QBs are, the elite QBs. But once those guys are off the board, trading back is in play. We just had a sucker sorry if he's watching this, trade the Trevor Lawrence pick, like 107 or whatever the last one was, and he fell for it. He gave up his third, his fourth, and then he only got back like a 7. So yes, in most of these sophisticated leagues, which by the way is great that Dynasty is becoming more sophisticated, right? That people know about this because it forces you to figure out new avenues. So the new trading, I think trading up is probably where the zag here, right? I just traded up, didn't give up much to get into the 112 spot, and that's either you're taking Deshaun Watson or Anthony Richardson. So you're no longer able to get the, quote, 2 elite QBs. If you want to trade up into it, you have to take some risk with Watson, not Dak. I don't like Dak there as trading up, but Anthony Richardson if you want to take the upside swing. So I think that's the new trade back. You have to trade up, and you have to take on more risk.
Yeah, and I will say on that you owe it to yourself if you're in a Superflex Dynasty startup. You need to go kick the tires on those top 5 picks. Got to kick the tires because you never know. I was at the 110, and we had a league just fill last night, and we started trading immediately. The draft actually starts tomorrow. I was at the 110. I was able to get myself into the 101 at a decent price. I couldn't believe it. But
what was the price?
Hang on.
Is this that league, Dan?
This is that league, yes. So, all right.
So you were on the clock. I
gave a first round pick.
Rookie first.
The 310 and the 110 for the 101 and the 901. So yeah.
So that was Chaser Jefferson, right? At that point?
Yeah.
And your first rounder next year, and you got up to the the players in there.
And the 310.
Right, and you so and that's either T.J. Hawkinson or that's Kenneth Walker. We've been talking about him. If you put the players' names in there, you that's a steal. It's
exactly.
an absolute steal.
And that's the thing, because you don't know. Basically when you go into that startup, you don't know how much somebody values Patrick Mahomes. Maybe they value him a ton. Maybe you have no chance. The odds are good. That's probably the case. But the thing is everybody comes in with a different idea of how they want to run their startup. The guy who had the 101, he was like, I want to try to trade. He's whacked out. I'm going to tell you that right now, and we'll talk a little more about that later. But he was looking to trade back because he wanted to get more picks in the top 5 rounds, and was willing to give up Mahomes to do that. So, if that's a strategy, hey, I'm going to be the guy who jumps in there. I'll take Mahomes for the next 10 years and be set. And you know what? Nobody's prying him from my cold, dead hands.
Yeah, Dan, you do a good job of that. When we get into a startup, you're good at kind of noticing what certain owners are doing or what they're, catching on trends quickly, and putting out those offers, those feelers, where a lot of owners maybe think it's kind of a no-sell situation, where they might be surprised what they can get. I think the biggest thing for me, we talked about this a bit last week with Shane, is if an owner gets in and they're just trading just to trade, they don't really have a plan, or they trade back a couple times, and then all of a sudden they decide they're going to trade up, and they end up trading up for back for more than what they actually sold for, and then losing value. So we're going to talk about a situation. I don't know if that's a situation you're in, Dan, with this new league, but I see that often, where it's puzzling. You watch, the movement of some of the ownership within the startup draft, and you could tell they're not really sure what they're doing. So try to have a plan, especially after those first few picks. It should give you an idea of which direction you're going year one with your team, and then that kind of sets in, where you can go moving forward. But I think losing value is definitely a thing you see, and it's usually just not having a plan. Were you gonna say something, Alan?
Yeah, JD, I was just gonna say it's okay to drive the speed limit in these drafts. Like you don't have to trade,
Totally.
right? Like sometimes just stick and pick. Like you light up the sleeper board and it's all in a row. I know it's boring, but if you're not feeling it or if the room's not giving it to you, if you're driving 55 in the middle lane, you could still put together a monster.
Right. Yeah. The main thing is just look for value and don't be afraid to look in either direction, trading up or trading back. Sometimes people are so desperate to trade back that they will give up value to do so. Sometimes people are so desperate to trade up they'll give up value to do so. You want to find that owner who's willing to give up extra value. They think they know something, and if they think they know something, help them find out if they actually do or not.
What do you guys do when all the elite quarterbacks are off the board? Like if you couldn't trade at like pick 9 or pick 10, you're in the Chase Jefferson zone. What do you take them, or it's like I haven't been in that spot yet? Yeah.
I do. That draft that you and I are in, Alan, with Theo.
Right.
Theo and I are sharing a team. We took Justin Jefferson because we couldn't really get a good offer to trade back. So we're like, you know what? We're very comfortable with Jefferson. We can still get good quarterbacks a little bit later. We're fine.
Especially when you look at the depth of the positions when you're drafting. For me, I get really uncomfortable earlier with the receivers versus running back. I mean, running back, I can go through the draft and find, like they talk about, those guys that'll fill in the gaps, the holes for my starting weeks. But for me, it's if you can grab one of those top guys at receiver. Like I said, I like being top heavy at receiver. So that, especially FFPC, where it's a shallower league, that's serviced me well. I know Dan and I have some teams built that way. So different ways to build, right? That's the beauty of Dynasty. It's the beauty of fantasy. There's so many ways to win.
Just be water. Be water.
Exactly.
Flow to the value.
JD, when I said driving 55 in the middle lane, I didn't mean to offend anyone that drives in kilometers, by the way. I don't know. Kilometers per hour. What is the speed limit in Toronto? Like on the highway?
The highway is 100. I think actually did they move it up to 110 yet? It's still 100, I think, but I think there's talks of moving it to 110 or something.
Dan, do the math. I'm not that smart. What's the MPH?
I believe 80 kilometers or 90 kilometers is about 55, right. If I remember right. So 100 would be about 60-ish.
Yeah.
110 would be about 65-ish. So
right.
Yeah. They're a little more cautious up there, but they've also got moose wandering across the road all the time, and you do not want to hit a moose.
So for anyone,
my wife hit one. Yeah.
Oh man! So for anyone listening in Toronto and Canada, all of JD's fans, let me re-say the reference. If you don't want to trade in startups, drive 110 down the middle lane, kilometers per hour.
There you go. There you go. I'm a cruise control guy, man. I just park that thing in cruise control. I ain't getting pulled over, man. 118 is my go-to.
And by the way, if you ever want to have fun, you're going about 75 down the highway, and whatever state you live in, just switch it over to kilometers. You'll feel like you're going a lot faster. It's great.
Yeah. What kind of damage did she do to the car when she hit a moose?
So this was pre my existence in her life, but when she was younger, she was driving like home at night and alone type of thing in the dark, and she grew up more away from the city, and she hit one, like rode off the car and was not good at all.
That's got to be the freakiest thing in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, you hit a moose, the car is done, and you just hope you survive, basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
because they're like giant trees.
It's like at Goodfellas when Tommy brings in, because we got to scrape off the hoof. And they said,
that's it.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna start playing some Pacino quotes here.
Goodfellas, best mafia movie of all time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the 101.
Right
I wouldn't argue it. I'm a Scarface guy, but I wouldn't argue Goodfellas either, man.
Oh, I mean, Scarface is it's a
more
top
of a gangster.
5.
It's more of a gangster.
Yeah, but Scarface is an elite top 5 option. But when you're talking about like the Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen tier, I'm not so sure. I love Scarface, but we're talking Goodfellas, we're talking Godfather. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
But Scarface is so good, so good.
Yes. But I'm not going to argue with Goodfellas at all. That movie's just
it's an awesome movie, and the cast is just ridiculous.
Yep. Casino is up there too.
Casino's up there. I'm a big Heat guy. I love love that scene. I mean, probably one of the greatest scenes in movies. Period. Is just that scene in the streets.
All right, let's see if the chat or the podcast or anyone listening on the replay. What's the 101 of Mafia? Let us know.
Let us know, guys, in the comments, in the chat. Guys, let's get back to it. 101s, these guys were at one point at the receiver position. We're going to talk about old receivers a bit now, Alan. It's a funny time of year for these guys, the Stephon Diggs, the Tyreek Hills, the Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams. We know what they've done. You've got, a couple of these guys in some good offenses, good situations. How are you approaching these guys in Dynasty? Are you like an ageist guy? You're just selling all your old dudes for youth? What are you doing with these possible league winners right now?
Yeah, no, I'm a win now, win always guy. I never rebuild. I never productive struggle because it's hard to do. First of all, you need patience and the stomach to do it. And I like winning. And in any given league that you're in, I don't care how sharp the league is, 2 to 3 people are playing for next year, and certainly by week 4 you probably lost another person, right? So I draft old players. Now I don't draft a lot of the times the way that you traditionally hear, which is get young wide receivers, fill it in later with some running backs. I'm okay going after, in past years, the running backs early. So when you say old wide receivers, you're talking about the elite ones, the Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupps, Devontae Adams. I'm going even older and dirtier than that. Like, I like the Tyler Lockett's, the Mike Evanses. So I'm okay with old because, look, Keenan Allen, the best edge you can get in Dynasty is to look at the redraft rankings when they come out, right? And the biggest gears you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, Mike Evans, if you somehow made it to the finals last year, he won you the league. He won you the league. I know it was one big week and he was a disappointment before that, but these Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett types. So to answer your question directly, I draft old players in Dynasty, but it's not for everybody. It's an acquired taste. It's like eating liver or something,
Yeah, you hit on a one of the GOAT District maxims there, Alan, with look at the redraft and then bring it over to Dynasty. I mean, that's one thing we talk about all the time, JD and I and Theo. That's why we like playing best ball. We like playing redraft. We like playing Dynasty because each one informs the other. Mm-hmm. I bring things from Dynasty into best ball and redraft too. So it goes both ways. But it just lets you know where the kind of the pockets of value are, and that's what you want to look for. So I'm curious, Alan, out of like Diggs, Hill, Kupp, Devontae Adams, which one makes you the most nervous?
Oh, it's got to be Devontae Adams, right? Because of the quarterback, he doesn't want to be there. It's all lining up weird. It's one of those things where it's just a gut feel. You would feel better if he got traded. Now Devontae Adams is going to be fine, right? And I'm not out of line with consensus where nobody likes Devontae Adams. You can't get a first-round pick for Devontae Adams right now in Dynasty, even though he's worth it until he actually plays. Someone will probably want DeAndre Hopkins unsigned ahead of not most people, but I bet you'll see people that want that. There's a lot of stinky cheese right now on Devontae Adams, so he's easily. He's almost in another tier at this point, not as far as actual value, as far as Dynasty trade value.
Yeah, totally agree. Does Diggs make you nervous at all?
Yes, right? The only one that does, right? But at the end of the day, you're telling yourself the story that he's playing with Josh Allen, he's going to be fine, and that you're not going to lose. You're not going to lose money with Stephon Diggs, right? You may not win you the league or make this huge profit by getting him, but you're going to get what you paid for, at least for this year. Now, there's a little crazy factor, but that's okay. You want your wide receivers to be a little nutty, right? Antonio Brown, for a half a decade, was the number one overall player. So, yeah, Diggs would definitely be the next guy on the I'm a little worried. Whereas Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill, you draft those guys, you're pretty set. Obviously, there's some warts on Cooper Kupp as well. But yeah, man, for good reason, right? Those other two, they make you nervous. But hey, listen, they're going to be on some of my teams.
Yeah. What about you, JD? Where are you at?
Yeah, well, Dan, on the Owners Lounge, we made a move for Tyreek Hill earlier this offseason, one of our big high-stakes leagues. Hill is a guy, he's still a top guy for me. For me, the most important thing is, well, first of all, the challenge is if you're a contender and you have one of these guys, it's always easier as a contender to go to like the non-contenders, right, and make a move. That's always a bit easier to pull a trade off. Whereas now you've got these guys in your team. Who are you pivoting to? Because if you're still competing this year, you need a pivot, right? You need someone that's going to come in and give you that production. and maybe give you whether you're trading down or trading up. But it's hard to go from like a Cup to like a CeeDee Lamb or a Jefferson because the dynamics don't really work between those two teams, right? So it becomes to a point where I think in a lot of cases in fantasy land, I think these guys are worth more on your bench. And I think that right now is probably the worst time to move them. For me, I'm waiting for the season. I'm waiting to see where I stand, how these guys produce. Devontae Adams goes off for 2 TDs and 120, which he can easily do. That's your sell moment. Diggs, same thing. That's your sell moment. If you have these guys on your team, you really don't trust them for 2023, wait till the season starts, in my opinion, to move them.
Here's the guy I trust least out of them, and it's Diggs. I think when it comes down to it, I think Devontae Adams is a professional. He's, he'll complain, but he's not a diva. He hasn't been acting like a diva for, basically his entire career. Diggs already has shown, that he's a hothead. When he left Minnesota, it was not on good terms. And now all of a sudden, you can see the lid, rattling and bubbling and everything. The pot is boiling hard underneath that lid. And I'm just worried that Diggs could melt down mid-season and walk off the team and, he could pull an Antonio Brown, shoulder pads coming off and the whole bit. I mean, I would not put that past Diggs, but I would put that past Devontae Adams. So I think
I respect
Diggs
that move, by the way. I respect that move Antonio Brown did. I love that. Just take real man does that, right? And I'm
definitely
sorry.
Not a nutless monkey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you work in the sound effect board too? This is unbelievable, man.
I do everything.
Yeah. I was just going to say that you talked about the Dynasty calendar, JD. That is such an underrated. I mean, it might be like old hat to Dan, to you, to me, but the Dynasty calendar, the value literally changes in week 4 once he's going off. Like his value is restored. The problem is, it's almost like Bitcoin, right? Like, do you guys mess with Bitcoin at all? Or right?
Oh, yeah.
So today
I just sold 25% with a 25% profit this morning, man.
There you go. See, it just went over 30,000 today. It's been sitting in the mid 20s, right?
Right at resistance, sold it. It's beautiful.
See, there you go. So you were able to sell it. Like, I was like, hey, listen, if it gets over 30, if Devontae Adams scores 2 touchdowns and has 100 yards, right, then I'm going to sell. Or it's Stephon Diggs. But then he does it, and I'm like, well, maybe not not so much.
When it's green, it's hard to sell, right, Alan?
There you go.
Yeah.
So, Dan, you guys both made such a good point that when these veterans hit in the season, it's the time to sell, but most dynasty managers won't do it because you're going to be 3-1. You're going to have these good players. So what do you guys suggest, right? Like, if you're doing well, if you're 2-2 and you want these guys off, would you actually have the discipline to do it?
Again, it depends on the pivot for me. It's simple.
Yeah.
It just depends on what I can get. And if I need their production, I need to replace that production. So maybe I go at a different position, right? Maybe I sell and I get myself a stud running back or I get myself a stud tight end, plug in a weakness with one of these guys if they're not necessarily my number one guy, and I'm able to replace their production at a different position.
Right. I need to know that I am going to be embarking on a rebuild before I'm going to sell guys like that, because that's the only way that I'm ever getting rid of them. And the only time to do that is in the season. I mean, it's pretty rare that you're going to find me going into it, coming off a season and then going into another season going, yeah, I got to rebuild this roster. Even if I have a lot of aging players, I've pulled off wins with aging players plenty. So I'm not just going to write them off and say, hey, these guys might have one more rodeo in them. I'm going to find out before I go selling guys. So I think it's, you should almost always be playing to win right out of the gates in your Dynasty League and then switch gears if you have to.
Yeah, what if it's like George Pickens and Jahan Dotson for Devontae Adams? You going to do that trade? Like, say you want to, right now, you want to get Devontae Adams off your roster, guys, right? JD, I'm offering you right now Jahan Dotson and George Pickens. Give me Devontae Adams. Are you doing it?
I don't hate that trade, to be honest. I like Dotson.
Yeah.
I mean, if the value is there, I'd have to kind of look at it value-wise. But, I mean, I don't mind that pivot because I expect Dotson to be – he's undervalued right now, in my opinion. So I think you can make a move like that. Again, I think that the teams that have Devontae, they're not seeing him as, oh, he's my wide receiver one going into 2023. In their heads, they're like, I got to move this guy. I need to make other plans. So if you can get two receivers like that you think are going to increase in value, Alan, you don't even have to wait to the season with those two. You could just wait until the preseason with those two, and then their value will escalate, will increase, and then you could make a move, and maybe you can go get yourself that stud or whatever it is that you initially wanted to get.
Yeah, but again, that's not a move I'm making until I'm sure that I'm going to be retooling, because the thing is, Devontae Adams is going to give you 18, 20, 21 points a game. These other guys, they'll give you 14, 15. Well, two guys getting you 14 or 15 is not as valuable as one guy who's giving you 19 or 20. Right. You have to have those absolute anchors in your lineup. So.
And Devontae is so consistent too, right? Like even if he has a bad year, it's going to be like 7 for 68 and a touchdown, 5 for 75, no touchdown. Like you're going to have like the 12-point games no matter what.
Yep, definitely.
All right, Alan. As predicted, we went off the rails a little bit. And we do have an out. Usually, when we get you on the DiSTRiCT on our channel, we go long, man. We go 90, we go whatever you want to give us. So maybe we'll get you back on there to do a more long form deep dive. But remind the people, obviously, you're on the Player Profiler Network. Let them know what to expect in the near future. And then at RotoWire, you're giving me props, dude. Video editor, Dynasty pod, thumbnails. I mean, that's on the list, buddy. I love the hustle.
I appreciate you guys having me on. And we'll have to get you guys coming over to the RotoWire world a little bit if you'll do it and just talk some Dynasty, talk some in-season stuff. But
Absolutely.
You could find me at Alan Seslowsky on Twitter. I post everything there. I do work full-time for RotoWire as the video editor. I host a show on SiriusXM. So starting this Sunday, we'll be on from 1 to 3 p.m. on Channel 87. That's the Fantasy Sports Channel. This week, if you tune in on the last week of June, we're still doing half baseball, half football. But then right after that, thank God, we go all football all the time because that, just like you guys, that's what I love. And all my work can be found on my Twitter at Alan Seslowsky. I post everything over there. And if you just want to come in and say hi, ask some questions, I love talking to people too. And if you're rude, I won't talk. No, I like it even better. But guys, I love the show. I love what you guys are doing. I love being around guys that really understand the game of Dynasty because it's just incredible how much it's growing. And you guys are doing your part to help grow the game and spread it. So bravo to you guys. I'm really appreciative of what you do here on this podcast.
Yeah, we appreciate hearing that. And one thing I think we should do on our way out too, Alan, give us one player that you want to kick the tires on.
Yeah, good call.
Who is that player that you just you're trying to acquire on the down low in pretty much any league you can?
So it used to be Will Fuller, right? Up until it's no longer Will Fuller. Like I would, but as far as it's funny, you guys were talking about like quarterbacks, like Jordan Love and all that stuff. But I'm collecting Russell Wilson in Superflex leagues. I believe, right? I mean, these guys are never attainable. Like I can pick 111. I can give Zay Flowers in a Superflex draft and get Russell Wilson. So. He's not exactly way down the rankings, but this is an actionable piece of advice. You can get him. You can take Baker Mayfield and pick 111 and go get him right now if somebody wants out of Russell Wilson. So that would be my guy. If you just want to go super deep down the rankings here, like guys that, man, it could happen is I'm still trying to get Odell Beckham, not because I think it's going to work out, but I think he was basically clipped off rosters at one point, even in 30 deeps. So with his new opportunity and this new offense, I'm back in on Odell Beckham, landing as a top 36, top 40-ish wide receiver this year, being useful for fantasy.
Nice.
Dan, 30 seconds. Who's your guy?
Give me some Elijah Moore. He definitely popped off as a rookie in New York, and he blew his cool when he was forced to deal with Zach Wilson as quarterback, but I can't blame him for that. I think that's a feature, not a benefit, or not a bug. So, give me a guy like that. I mean, at least he cares. You can say, well, what's the difference between him and Diggs? I don't know. I think he's young. I think he'll learn. I think he, just kind of popped off the one time. I'll give him the grace of the one strike, but. I love some Elijah Moore. I think he's talented as heck. I think he's gone to a team that can utilize that talent. So I love acquiring him on the cheap right now.
Yeah, I like that. I like both of your calls there. I'm going to go back to Buffalo, guys. We talk about Diggs. Gabe Davis, I think, is like the forgotten guy right now. And you got to think, if you look actually at his targets, he was in the 60s first couple of years, and last year 30% more in the 90s with the same amount-ish number of games played. I keep saying this offense is going to change. They're not going to keep doing the same thing, banging their head against the wall, doing the same thing over and over. Yes, they brought in Kincaid. I'm not depending on him week one. And we're seeing issues, with Diggs. I hope everything works out with him. But I think even no matter what, I think Davis takes the next step in Buffalo. I think you can get him pretty cheap right now in fantasy land. Guys, we appreciate you guys crushed in the chat as usual. Smash that like, smash the subscribe. Make sure you check out the GOAT District channel on YouTube. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Tonight was fun, man. I love talking Dino. Guys, go out there, send some trade offers, get some action going on in your dynasty leagues, and we'll check you all later.
Go DiSTRiCT, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT DiSTRiCT, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out PlayerProfiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.